as we promised a little earlier on, concerning developments in Sudan, Amnesty International has released a stark new report accusing Sudan's rapid support forces of carrying out war crimes during their assault on Zamzam, and that's the largest displacement camp in Darfur. According to the organization, between 11 and the 14th of April, the RSF and allied groups attacked civilians, burned shelters, destroyed clinics, mosques, and schools, and forced more than 400,000 people to flee. The findings suggest that violence at Zamzam is not an isolated incident, but part of a wider and continuing pattern of atrocities across Darfur as Sudan's war worsens and humanitarian access collapses. Well, to help us understand what's happened and what it means for civilians and the international community we can realistically do, we're now joined by Amnesty International researcher Niki Frederiek, who authored the report. Niki, thanks so much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and good morning.
So, Niki, take us through what the Amnesty report documents regarding what happened at the Zamzam camp during the April attacks.
So our research found that on the morning of the 11th of April, residents woke up to heavy shelling and random gunfire when the RSF attacked Zamzam camp. In their attack, they deployed explosive weapons. They were randomly shooting their firearms in densely populated residential areas. And as you mentioned, the attack lasted for 3 days. Eyewitnesses told us that they saw RSF fighters shoot and kill 47 civilians who were hiding in homes. They were fleeing the violence at a clinic. And these were just the amount of deaths that the people that we spoke to had seen, but the civilian harm is incredibly high. The death rate estimates from 220 to as high as 1,500. Eyewitnesses told us that they saw RSF fighters burn the markets, burn shops, burn businesses, really leaving Zamzam uninhabitable for anybody to return, really. And the people that were able to escape just described absolute harrowing displacement journeys characterized by lack of food, lack of water, lack of medicine. They saw their loved ones die from their injuries sustained during the attack along the way. They saw they said they saw many people die of thirst just because of the lack of water in these areas. And then once they reached places of relative safely, they were explaining how they were living under trees, just in absolute dismal conditions without any real access to humanitarian services.
And from your observations, these are war crimes that you're witnessing or finding out. And are civilians being primarily targeted, not combatants?
We indeed say that these violations must be investigated as war crimes. And whilst there were presence of military forces in Zamzam, the incidents that we documented targeted civilians. And from the testimonies as well as from verified video evidence, it's clear that the RSF fighters were attacking anybody that they perceived to have been associated with the joint forces that have been fighting alongside the Sudanese armed forces.
You described the
regardless
Zamzam
of whether they were. Sorry.
You described the Zamzam assault as part of a sustained pattern. Tell us a little bit more about the wider trends of violence that are emerging across Darfur.
So we had seen the RSF's campaign in Darfur to capture Darfur really started in May 2024, and as part of this campaign, they laid a siege on the capital of North Darfur, El Fasher, for approximately 18 months. And to gain their territory and hold ground, they attacked villages, they attacked IDP camps, and the attack on Zamzam that took place in April of this year is really very emblematic of those attacks that happened on many other IDP camps and and villages in North Darfur. And in October, RSF claimed control over Al Fasher, also with incredibly horrific reports coming from executions, more deliberate killings of civilians, as well as women and girls that have been subjected to sexual violence.
RSF, of course, claiming that they didn't target civilians and that armed groups actually are operating inside the camp. How do these claims by RSF compare with what your research has uncovered?
We did document the military presence of factions of the joint forces as well as self-defense groups. However, the camp hosted hundreds of thousands of civilians living in highly densely populated areas, and the camp consisted of civilian objects, including medical facilities that were delivering humanitarian services, and these are protected. So whilst the forces and the military equipment belonging to the joint forces factions can be legitimate military targets, just the mere presence of those joint forces neither makes Zamzam camp a legitimate military target as a whole, and nor does it alleviate the rapid support forces from its responsibility to abide by international humanitarian law, including the principle of distinction.
A concern has been raised about RSF getting support, external support from places like the United Arab Emirates. Your research, has that backed that claim up? What do we know?
We have indeed documented in past reports that the UAE supports the RSF with weapons. We have found both weapon systems from China as well as France that have been redirected through the UAE to the RSF. So we are calling on countries, and in the first place, the United Arab Emirates, to refrain from transferring any weapons or any ammunition to the RSF, as well as other actors in the conflict, because we did find that the United Arab Emirates has actively fueled the armed conflict by supporting the RSF with weapons.
Niki, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, and thank you for this report.
Thank you.
That was Niki Frederiek, who's Amnesty International researcher and author of the report titled "A Refugee Destroyed" on the Zamzam camp attacks in Darfur. And it paints a pretty grim picture. Certainly we need to keep shining the light on these atrocities that have been taking place in this part of the world.
16 minutes past 7.